Hey guys, it's Bridget with San Diego Seed Company, and today we're going to be talking about starting your tomatoes and considerations for whether you start them inside, outside, under grow lights. It gets very confusing. I totally know. I'm going to walk you through all of those steps and the considerations we make, but before I do that, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you're notified anytime we put out a video. Okay, so we're doing tons of seed starting workshops and classes and workshops on our farm. And with all of that, we get a common question over and over again. And that's, well, do I start my seeds indoors, in zone 9 and 10 specifically is what I'm talking about? Do I start them indoors or do I start them outdoors? Do I need a grow light? All of that. Well, I want to clarify that for you guys because it's confusing and you want to start off with the first right step and go in the right direction. So I've actually got some tomatoes here. I'm really excited. This is our first round of dwarf tomatoes that are going out to the farm. We're so excited that we have them up and going. They're a tad bit early, but we are starting so many tomatoes this year for our farm that we needed to kind of do it in staggering stages. So these guys were actually started underneath a grow light indoors, okay? Now for those of you who have taken my workshops, you know that I always talk about how I don't like starting stuff indoors and I don't like starting things under grow lights. I like using Mother Nature. But the reason why we did these under grow lights is because we started them so darn early. We started these end of January, which is really very early, especially for zone 9 and 10. But here's the reason why. So I want to walk through our thought process. We have a limited amount of space and we need to do things in groups successively so that we can get them into the greenhouse and then get them out to the farm. We can't possibly do all 800 plants at once, right? We don't have that room. So we had to start them inside because it was simply too cold and we had a lot of wacky weather. Now, obviously we're in a greenhouse now, so we've moved them out into the greenhouse and they are hardening off here. You can tell it's actually just a little bit over 60 degrees inside this greenhouse. This greenhouse is not heated and cooled, okay? It only heats up by the sunlight that it receives and only cools down by the fans that we turn on to circulate air. So by moving them out here, we are starting the hardening off process. And what does hardening off mean? Basically, it's toughening them up, right? It's making them hard, making them ready for the garden setting. And to do that, they need to be exposed to less than ideal temperatures and conditions. For these guys, you know, this greenhouse drops to basically the same temperature as we have outside in zone 9 and 10 during this time of year. So at night it can drop down to 50 degrees, sometimes a little bit lower in here. These guys are exposed to that, but they're only exposed to that for a few hours. And that is what hardening off does. Little by little, we're exposing them to less than ideal conditions, temperature-wise, maybe moisture-wise, sunlight. They're getting stronger sunlight in here. And on the flip side, this greenhouse also can warm up to get very hot. Now we have fans that we turn on, but nothing's automated. So if I accidentally leave these guys in here and it gets up to 95 degrees for an hour max, maybe 2 hours, it's not going to hurt them. It's exposing them to what they're going to grow in when they go out to the farm this spring and this summer. Maybe you haven't started your tomato seeds yet. That's perfectly fine. Guess what? You live in zone 9 and 10 and you have a very long growing season and you can start tomato seeds. Man, you can start them all the way until June or July. You have plenty of time. So when you're thinking to yourself, how would I start my tomato seeds? Consider this. If the temperatures outside are below 50 consistently, so maybe you're in an upper elevation area, zone 9 and 10, or we're having a crazy weather storm, that might be an indicator that you're not going to be successful starting them outdoors. Okay? But the good news for you is once we really get past April or even middle of April, most of zone 9 and 10 will have warmed up and you can successfully start your seeds outdoors. And when I mean outdoors, you don't even necessarily need a greenhouse. In fact, I warn a lot of our beginning farming and gardening students to know that a greenhouse can be very difficult, and if you're not regulating the temperature and the airflow, it can very easily fry all of your plants. So for the last 10 years, we've actually started 99% of our crops just outdoors, underneath the direct sunlight. The beautiful Mother Nature has been starting our seeds. But when you do it outside, you have to have more consideration for temperature ranges, what the low at the night is going to be. You know, if it's really going to get really, really low at night, you might want to think about putting row cover on top. Or if it's going to get really hot during the day, you might want to think about putting shade cloth up. Remember, only nothing more than 40% shade cloth is what we recommend for most vegetables and flowers. So really you have to decide. But the important takeaway from this whole video is if you're in zone 9 and 10, you don't need a fancy greenhouse and you don't need fancy grow lights and a whole indoor setup to do that. You can, and we're actually gonna go over to Jeff's house and we're gonna check out what his tomato plants look like right now underneath his grow lights. But you're also completely capable of starting them outdoors. Make sure you check the links in this video because we're gonna link to our seed starting masterclass, and we also have tons of other videos and resources on our website on actually how to physically start your seeds. And we want to get you up and started this spring so that this year can be the best year yet. Okay guys, so we flew on over to Jeff's homestead and we're here in his office, and I want to look at his starts that he's doing underneath grow lights so I can better explain to you what that actually looks like. So he's got a really rad setup. It just looks like something out of I don't know, Home and Garden magazine. So much neater than my house. Love it. And there's some key things here that you got to consider if you're going to start anything indoors. One, obviously you have to have a space for it, right? You have to have a grow light. These are really fabulous grow lights. What makes them so great is they're as wide as the tray. A lot of grow lights that you buy now are long and skinny and they don't actually give light throughout the whole area. See, the reason why these look so darn good, dark green and beautiful is because they're getting light that is similar to what they would outside. The light hits all parts of the plant. That's really, really important. The other thing too is he's got this very innovative, complicated system of raising and lowering his plants. He's got 2x4s that he puts in here, or 2x1s or 2x2s. I don't know what they are, but it's a very simple way to, because he can't lower these, he has to bring this up, right? I've mentioned on all of my videos, the number one thing that I see people do wrong is they will have their starts all the way down here, and they'll be little tiny starts and they're not getting enough sunlight. So they're reaching and they get long and leggy. In fact, actually you can see here as I take this out, if I were to maybe leave the tray like this, the plants on this side are going to suffer because they're not getting the direct UV light that you see here. So it needs to be centered right in the middle of this light. That's really a very important tip. Now I'm stressing how close these need to be to the grow light, but there is always a danger to anything, right? So too far away is an issue, but also too close is an issue. This you see here is actually burn, okay? That's from, got some more burn over here. That's from the light actually touching the plant or becoming so close to it that it looks like sunburn. It's pretty easy to tell because it looks like a burn and it's, you know, in a one specific spot. It's not really spread over. The nice thing is if you see that happening, check your spacing and adjust accordingly. And you can simply just take this little leaf off. It's not gonna hurt in the long run, but if you keep doing it over and over for a long period of time, the plant will struggle. Okay, so a pro tip here too is I really like these trays where you have these individual little cups. The reason being is a lot of times we want to grow a mixed tray. Maybe I don't want a whole tray of tomatoes. Well, I need to be able to move plants individually, right? Because this basil is going to grow at a different speed than this tomato, or like up here. Peppers take forever to grow. You can see that these guys are growing super slow. And you can also see another pro tip. It's like Jeff is listening to me, but here's a heating mat. Why? Because we need that soil to be nice and warm because peppers germinate so incredibly slow. So the other thing you got to remember is airflow. Just like in the greenhouse, I have to run a fan. We got a little cute little fan here. And look at that. It's going right on the plant. It doesn't have to be super high powered, you know, movement of air. But this is also really going to help with soil gnats, which is like the number one annoying thing about starting your seeds inside is you get these little gnats that fly around your house and nobody likes that. And then you're running around trying to get them and you look like a crazy lady. So avoid that by having good airflow sweeping across the soil of your plants to ensure that any gnats in your house, which there is some, I promise, don't lay more eggs on the soil and create the problem worse. It's also gonna help with dampening off. It also does a really important thing. It actually moves the plants. By moving the plants, you're exercising them. Just like we move our bodies to exercise, they're gonna be stronger, better plants. So that really in a nutshell is the things that you have to know to start seeds inside. Again, I'm an advocate of starting it outside in Mother Nature, but if you're really trying to start early, or if you're out of zone 9 and 10 and you need to start inside because of the weather patterns, then those are the things that you need to know. The next thing I want to talk about is, okay, you have these guys in a perfect environment. Literally, it's 73 degrees in here, 41% humidity. It's like absolute perfect temperature in here. If I were to take these outside and put them outside and the temperature is not that perfect, they're gonna be shocked. They're not gonna know what's going on. We need to harden them off. What does that look like? Well, let's just take this tray outside and I'll give you an idea. Come on. Okay, so I have this tray, and let's pretend that this is your backyard, and you're like, well, what am I gonna do with this tray? Well, ask yourself, how can I acclimate these to the weather temperatures outside without exposing them to extremes? So let's say it's a really hot day, really crazy direct sunlight. Guess what? I might move them underneath here, where they're getting a little bit of that extra warm, direct sunlight, but I'm gonna watch them, okay? I'm not gonna leave them here all day unattended. I'm gonna make sure that they're well watered. They've got plenty of water in the bottom of the tray. They're getting exposed to some hours of direct sunlight, but they're not being exposed to hot direct sunlight all day long. Let's say the weather gets a little bit cooler. Like actually right now it's like 64 degrees and beautiful. I'm gonna leave them right here. And I'm gonna let them become exposed to the wind. We actually have a little bit of rain and drizzle coming. This is a perfect time to get them out here and expose them little by little to the temperatures that are actually outside. There's no one formula for hardening off. The point is that you're babying them and you're slowly exposing them to temperatures that they're actually gonna grow in. Now here in zone 9 and 10, we don't have to do such a hardcore hardening off regimen because our weather is so awesome. Other zones, you might want to think about being even extra more careful when you're doing your hardening off. I'll leave these out during the day. I will take them back in at night because our nighttime temperatures are pretty low. And I might do that a couple of times before they get planted out in the spring. In a nutshell, that is how you start any crop from seed and expose them to the natural temperatures they're going to need to grow in so they're the happiest, healthiest plants you can grow. Okay, so whether you're starting indoors or outdoors, in transplants, direct sowing, however you're starting your seeds, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you use some of our pro tips so you can be as successful as possible and make sure you get out in the garden and grow. Good question we get.
Your skin stretches.
Itches, yes. Yeah. And someone was like, don't itch, it makes stretch marks worse. I'm like, oh, don't tell you that.